I randomized a copy of Pokémon FireRed with random Pokémon, random enemy teams, random items, abilities, and more. To add even more chaos to this playthrough, it's a Nuzlocke. In a Nuzlocke, if a Pokémon faints, it's dead forever and can never be used, and I can only encounter the first randomized Pokémon per new area. The rest of the rules for this playthrough are shown here and in the description down below. This playthrough is bound to be chaotic with all the randomness going on. Let's do this. The first step in this randomized playthrough is picking up a starter. My three choices are Oddish, Pikachu, and Machop. Pikachu could be solid, but with no guaranteed way to get a Thunderstone to evolve Raichu, it's too much of a risk, so I decided to go with Machop. Thanks to the setting of this randomizer, trait evolution Pokemon evolve at level 37. I named my Machop Flesh, and he has the ability Effect Sport, which is normally Shroomis's ability, but a great ability nonetheless. And then from here, I start catching Pokemon. My first encounter is a Hoothoot, which has Thick Fat as its ability, which is pretty cool. My next encounter is a Togepi with Own Tempo, which is a pretty solid ability, but arguably my best pickup is a Kirlia. Gardevoir is an amazing Pokemon due to being a fast special sweeper. My Viridian Force pickup is way worse in Cascoon, who I decided to name Iron Man. And these are all the encounters I get before it's time to face the first gym leader, Brock. Brock's normally a pushover, but in this game he could have anything that's a similar strength to his Onix. He leads off with Horsey, and I lead off with Flesh, who gets hit by a bubble before going for a Karate Chop doing half. After taking another bubble, he gets the kill with another Karate Chop. Next is Ariados, so I switch it to Captain on a Poison Sting, that of course poisons. On the next turn, I decide to go for a Peck, doing decent damage as I get hit by a Scary Face. I then hard switch into Wong on a Poison Sting that luckily doesn't poison. I then go for Confusion, doing massive damage as Ariados just goes for another Scary Face. After tanking a Poison Sting, that of course poisons, I pick up the kill with a Confusion on the following turn, winning me the battle and the first gym badge. Even in a randomizer, Brock sucks. The Mount Moon Magikarp encounter actually gets randomized into a Tailo, so I guess Ohio found a way back onto the team. In Mount Moon, I catch a Zigzagoon that I name Rocket, and then I also find a Magnemite, which is a great encounter thanks to that Steel type. Surely this thing won't have Truant later and become useless, but for now, Thor is an amazing encounter. And that's gonna matter, because it's time for our fight with Misty. She leads with Pidgeot, and I lead off with Kalo. After taking a soft wing attack, I actually end up getting the kill with a critical hit wing attack. Second is Tauros, so I switch into Flesh on a hard horn attack. I then have to risk a critical hit here, which Tauros does not land, meaning I can hit a low kick, leaving him with just a sliver. This then prompts Misty to heal, so I can switch into Thor for free after she heals up. After tanking a resisted horn attack on the next turn, I can go for a Thunder Wave to paralyze it. I then decide to switch into Rocket for his debut battle on a Scary Face, meaning I can go for a Headbutt doing half as I tank a massive horn attack. I then switch into Strange on another massive horn attack. On the next turn, I go for a Psych Up as I tank a Scary Face. I then decide to switch into Wong on the following turn on yet again another massive horn attack. This does mean I'm able to get a safe switch here into Thor as Tauros finally gets fully paralyzed for the first time. On the next turn, I go for a Thunder Shock, leaving the bull with a sliver as he gets off a Scary Face. Tauros then manages to get off one more critical hit horn attack before a Thunder Shock on the following turn seals the deal, winning me the battle and the second gym badge. That Tauros was a demon, and it seems like a good time to explain another setting I added to the randomizer. After level 45, all Pokemon will be fully evolved, so I gotta find the strongest team possible. But before I can do that, it's time for a rival fight with Butt. He leads off with Clefairy, and I lead off with Loki, who outspeeds and hits a wing attack as Clefairy misses a Sing. This means another wing attack picks up the KO. Second is Nincada, who just gets sniped by a super effective wing attack. Third is Slowpoke, and a wing attack does a little less than 50% as I tank a Confusion. A follow-up wing attack leaves Slowpoke with a sliver as he goes for a Growl. A wing attack on the following turn then picks up the KO, but this thing has Flame Body, meaning my wing attacks get nerfed. Since his next Pokemon is unknown, I switch into Rocket on a super effective Hidden Power. A headbutt on the next turn is enough to pick up the KO because Unknown is pretty weak here. And since Taylor is at level 23, I can evolve him into a Swallow. This is the 4th time I've used a Swallow in one of my challenges, and each time it's always been a pleasure. After freeing Bill from his questionable experiment, I decide to go to Diglett Cave and find a trap bench who I name Pepper. Since we have 7 Pokemon, it's time to drop Strange the Togepi. That bench ain't gonna warm itself, buddy. And then from here, I make it to the SSN where a rival fight with Butt awaits. He leads off with Mawile, and I lead off with Flesh. Mawile hits a fake tears, lowering my special defense before I go for a Karate Chop, leaving him with 1 HP. After taking a bite, a Karate Chop on the next turn gets the kill. In comes Lairon, who hits a Metal Claw before I get a critical hit Karate Chop to take it out. Third is Gloom, so I switch into Wong. I then go for a Confusion on the following turn, which actually gets the clean one-shot. And then last is Parasect. I go for a Confusion as I get hit by his Stun Spore. This does mean I have to switch into Loki on a Leech Life. On the following turn, a super effective wing attack seals the deal, winning me a pretty easy battle. After rubbing a captain's back in order to get the HM for cut, somebody should seriously investigate this guy. It's time to fight Lieutenant Surge for badge number 3. Surge decides to lead off with a Swablu, and I lead off with Thor, who hits a Thundershock, leaving the Cloudbird with a Sliver before I get put to sleep with a Sing. Surge then heals Swablu for free as I stay asleep. I then stay asleep for the next 3 turns. Luckily, I wall Swablu fairly well with my Steel type, so that by the time I do wake up and hit a Thundershock, I'm at relatively full HP. Surge does not heal in the following turn, meaning a Thundershock gets the KO. Second is Ekans, and I hit a Thunder Wave that doesn't hit due to safeguard, meaning Ekans gets off a free Leer. On the next turn, I hit a massive Thunder Shock before I take a bite. This means a Thunder Shock on the following turn picks up the KO. His Ace Cradily comes in, and this thing actually walls my team fairly well. I hit a Thunder Shock for some chip, and I get the paralysis as Cradily just goes for an Ingrain. On the next turn, I switch into Flesh as Surge heals up with a full heal. I then go for a Karate Chop after taking an Acid, which actually crits and just takes it out, winning me the 3rd gym badge. And then outside of Lavender Town, I catch a Slackoth. This is a great encounter because when I evolve him, assuming he doesn't die before then, he won't have Truant, which prevents Pokemon from moving twice in a row. Compare that with Slaking's amazing stats and whatever ability it gets, and you have a recipe for disaster. I name my Slackoth Loki. Let's ignore that I also have a Swallow named Loki, so we'll call Swallow Loki 2 and replace Rocket the Lanoon, who can live peacefully in the box. In Celadon City, I also pick up the Eevee encounter, which randomizes into a Houndoom that I name Thanos. I also managed to find a Shedinja, but without Wonder Guard, this thing is basically useless. No wonder these games aren't on the Switch yet. This brings me to the fight for the 4th gym badge against Erica. Her lead Pokemon is a Gourbice, and I lead off with Thor. I outspeed and a Spark doing massive damage and get the paralysis as Gourbice sets up an Agility. Erica then heals and my Spark gets a worse damage roll. Since I outspeed, another Spark picks up the KO. Second is Seaking, so I hit a Spark leaving him with a Sliver as I get hit by a boosted Flail. On the following turn, a Spark is enough to take it out. Third and last is Electabuzz, who actually walls me fairly well. I start out by paralyzing Electabuzz after gaining my defense is lowered. This means I can switch into Pepper on a full heal. I can go for a Sand Tomb after taking a Swift doing no damage, so I switch into Flesh on a Swift. After taking a Thunder Punch, I go for a Karate Chop, which once again crits, winning me the battle and the 4th gym badge. With an increased level cap, I can go ahead and evolve a bunch of my Pokemon. Surely it's not if Thor has Truant, the worst ability in the game, and becomes useless and boxed immediately. All of these evolutions are great, and I'm sure they'll all carry us to victory. This brings me to a fight with Butt. His first randomized Pokemon is a Houndour, and I lead off with Wong, meaning I have to hard switch into Pepper as the Hellhound sets up a Howl. I then hit a Crunch for a smidge as I tank a Bite. On the next turn, I outspeed and manage to get a critical hit with my Dragon Breath. Second is Skip Bloom, so I hit a Dragon Breath, leaving him in the yellow as this thing misses a Stun Spore. This does mean I get the kill on the following turn with another Dragon Breath. Third is Moltres. I have no idea which one of Blue's Pokemon randomized into a legendary because the randomizer randomizes Pokemon into a similar strength. But anyway, I switch into Loki, who is able to get the kill with a Slash. Fourth is Cursula, who takes massive damage from a Slash and just hits a weak bubble in retaliation. On the following turn, I get the KO with a Slash. And then last is Flaffy, who just gets killed by a Slash, winning me the battle and the fight against Butt. Okay, I just want to point out, where did this guy go? He just disappeared. Anyway, in Rocket Hideout lies a fight with Giovanni. He leads Sudowoodo and I lead off with Loki. Loki gets off a slash for around a third as he gets hit with a low kick. I then switch into Thanos on a low kick, and then it's off to Loki on a flail. So I switch into Pepper on a rock slide doing minimal damage. On the next turn I hit a crunch leaving the tree in the red as I tank another rock slide. This means I'm free to go for another crunch, baiting in artillery. And then from here I decide to switch into Flesh on a side beam that confuses. And then I'm able to go for switch into Wong on a bubble beam doing minimal damage. Thanks to my massive special attack stat, a Thunderbolt on the following turn is enough for the kill. Third is Cubone, and for whatever reason I go for a Thunderbolt, but it does no damage and I get hit by a Leer. And then I switch into Loki, who's able to go for a slash on the next turn, picking up the KO, winning me the battle. And then outside of Lavender Town, I catch a Carnivine. I haven't talked about every encounter, but keep this one in mind for later. He'll become important. And then after this, I'm able to evolve Machoke into a Machamp thanks to a setting I clicked on the randomizer. This brings me to the fight for the 5th gym badge against Koga. He leads off with a Cyndaquil, and I lead with Loki. Since the Cyndaquil sucks, I can just go for a slash to take it out. In fact, Loki's able to sweep the rest of Koga's team with a couple of slashes apiece, winning me the battle. It does get a little bit hairy at some point because I do get paralyzed, but that's about it. This means it's off to Saffron City for another rival fight with Butt. He leads with Shuckle and I lead off with Spello. Realizing I can't hit this thing, I switch into Flesh, who's able to go for a couple of karate chops as this thing sets up a bide. By the time it's all said and done, I'm left with just 43 HP before I'm able to take it out with a karate chop. Chili comes in, so I switch into Wong on a side beam that does not confuse. And then I'm able to go for a Thunderbolt to take it out. Third is Gengar, who hangs on from a Thunderbolt and gets off a Confuse Ray. Luckily I break through on the following turn and I pick up the KO with a Thunderbolt. Fourth is Farfetch'd, and this thing is so weak that he just falls to one Thunderbolt, leaving Kabutops, who also falls down to one Thunderbolt because of that water type, winning me the battle. Where did your legendary go? And where's your Raticate? Guess that's where Ratatouille's missing out went. As a reward for defeating Butt, I get a gift Porygon that's never used at all. And then it's time for the second Giovanni fight. His lead is a Growlithe who just gets killed by a critical hit Aerial Ace from Swallow. Second is another Growlithe, and an Ace does half as they get hit by an Odor Slough. A follow-up Ace on the next turn gets the KO. Hariyama comes in and lives in Aerial Ace but just hits a weak Smelling Salt in retaliation, meaning another Aerial Ace gets the KO. Last is Hitmontop, and my Aerial Ace actually gets another critical hit to take it out, winning me the battle. Even in a randomizer, Giovanni sucks. There's not much else to report before taking on Sabrina for the 6th gym badge. Her lead is Eradicate, and I lead off with Swallow, who hits a hard Aerial Ace as I get my speed lowered. This then prompts Sabrina to heal up as I hit another Aerial Ace. After missing a Hyper Fang, Eradicate falls to an Aerial Ace on the next turn. Sabrina then shows me her own Swallow, who hits a wing attack before I hit an Aerial Ace, leaving him in the red. Sabrina heals up again, and another Aerial Ace leaves him in the red. Swallow then goes for an Endeavor before I get the KO with an Aerial Ace. Third is Crobat, and thanks to the Endeavor, I switch into Wong on a hard wing attack. Switching Psychic-type Pokemon in general is pretty hard to do because I usually have pretty bad defenses. I decide to risk it, and Crobat misses an Air Cutter, meaning I can take it out with a Psychic. And then her next Pokemon is a Vileplume, and this thing is a Poison type, meaning I can just take it out with a Psychic to win me the battle and the 6th gym badge of the run. And then outside of Palatown, I find a Skarmory. Skarmory is an amazing Pokemon thanks to his bulk and Steel type. This does mean it's time to bid farewell to Swallow, however, and it's really not that hard because I've done this before, and at least Swallow enjoys his time in the PC with other random Pokemon that did not make it in this playthrough. After this, I make it to the Cinnabar Islands where I have a shot at 2 encounters. The first is a Weezing, which I forgot to record, and the second encounter is a Fossil. Since I have a pea-sized brain, I actually forgot to check out what this fossil was going to turn into, but luckily, if you guys were actually wondering, I did go back and looked at my save file, and it turns out this Pokemon was an Octillery, which wouldn't have made it on the final team anyway. I can then evolve Pepper into a Flygon, who will become an Utter Beast with Dragon Claw and Earthquake. These are all the preparations I need to fight Blaine. He leads with Nidoqueen, and I lead off with Flesh, who outspeeds and gets hit with a Body Slam, before I hit a low kick doing a third. I then get paralyzed with a Body Slam, but luckily I had a Karate Chop for some chip. From here it's off to Wong on a weak Body Slam. Wong then outspeeds and gets the KO with a Psychic. Second is Charizard, but since I have Thunderbolt, I'm able to get the kill with a critical hit. Not sure if it mattered, but oh well. Third is Aggron, who walls me fairly well, so I switch into Thanos, who comes out on a critical hit Iron Tail. Okay, new plan. Thanos dies. He gets off a critical hit Ember, doing decent damage before being left on 4 HP by a takedown. Since Aggron is now in the red, I can go for an Ember, which actually manages to get a burn. I then switch into Flesh on Blaine's heal turn. I go for a Karate Chop on the next turn, which just takes it out. Fourth and last is Blaine's own Machamp, so I switch into Pepper on a missed Cross Chop. I then hit a Dragon Claw for around a fourth before tanking a massive Cross Chop. Since I can't take another one, I switch into Wong on a nasty critical hit. Okay, new plan. Thanos dies. He comes in and gets sniped by a Vital Throw, marking our first death of the run. At the very least, Iron Patriot can come in and pick up the KO with a couple of air cutters, but that sucks. There's nothing else to do before it's time to take the final and 8th gym leader, Giovanni. He leads with Slowbro and I lead off with Widow for his debut battle. Remember him from earlier? Yeah, this is the same guy. He immediately proves his worth by getting the kill on Slowbro with a crunch. Unfortunately, he gets burned, meaning I have to switch into Wong on a Razor Leaf. Wong is able to get the clean kill with a Psychic on the next turn, baiting in Houndoom. This means I have to switch into Pepper on a Bite. I then go for a Dragon Claw, doing half as I get hit with a Feint Attack. And then on the following turn, I land a critical hit Dragon Claw, getting the kill. Fourth is Cradily, so I switch into Iron Patriot on an Amnesia. I then hit a massive Steel Wing as Cradily sets up an Ingrain. This means it brings it out of healing range, meaning another Steel Wing gets the KO. Last is Ursaring, who actually manages to tank an Air Cutter and then goes for a Thrash. It doesn't do much thanks to my Steel type, however. I then hit a Steel Wing, bringing him into the yellow as the bear hits a Thrash and then gets confused. It doesn't matter here because Giovanni uses a full heal, but then my Steel Wing connects to take it out, winning me the 8th and final gym badge. And for the third time, Giovanni still sucks in a randomizer. Who doesn't suck nearly as much is Butt. He's a full team of 6 and they could be anything. Butt leads with a Manectric and I lead off with Wong, who just gets the kill with a Psychic. In fact, Butt's next 3 Pokemon fall to a couple of Psychics from Wong until Blissey comes in. Blissey is a great special wall, but not the best physical wall, meaning all I gotta do is switch into Flash and hit a low kick to get the KO, even with a defense boost thanks to a defense crawl. Last for Butt is a Donphan, who outspeeds and hits an Earthquake before I get off a Karate Chop for a 5th. After tanking another Earthquake, I managed to bring Donphan into the yellow HP range. Since I'm low, I switch into Iron Patriot on a failed Earthquake. I then hit a critical hit Air Cutter to take Donphan out, winning me the battle and the fight against Butt. And then for my final randomized encounter in Victory Road, I find a Camerupt who won't make it on the final team at all. But with that, we're at the Indigo Plateau. 5 trainers remain in the way of victory. My final team of 6 is Wong with Psychic, Thunderbolt, Calm Mind, and Teleport. Pepper with Dragon Claw, Crunch, Sandstorm, and Earthquake. Flush the Machamp with Low Kick, Leer, Focus Energy, and Karate Chop. Loki, the Slaking with Slash, Yawn, Encore, and Slack Off. Iron Patriot with Air Cutter, Steel Wing, Sand Attack, and Spikes. And lastly Widow with Leer, Crunch, Focus Energy, and Surf. Let's do this. The first Elite Four member fight is against Lorelei. Her lead is an Electabuzz and I lead off with Wong, who does massive damage with a Psychic before being hit by a Screech. Lorelei then heals and 2 more Psychics get the KO. Second is Vaporeon, who tanks around half from a Psychic and sets up an Acid Armor, raising his defense. I then pick up the KO on the following turn with a Thunderbolt. Third is Misdreavus, who tanks around half from a Thunderbolt as he goes for a Parashong. Since I'm dead in 2 turns, I decide to switch into Pepper on a Pain Split. I then hit a massive Dragon Claw before tanking a Psybeam. Lorelei then switches out into her Typhlosion because her Misdreavus is dead in 2 turns, meaning he takes around half from a Dragon Claw. On the next turn, I outspeed and kill with an Earthquake. Misdreavus then comes back in, but just goes down to a single Dragon Claw because he is a pretty weak Pokemon. Fifth and last is Sceptile, so I switch into Iron Patriot on a failed Detect. After tanking a Leaf Blade, I hit an Air Cutter, leaving him in the yellow, bringing him down to his berry. After tanking another Leaf Blade, I get the KO with an Air Cutter, winning me the battle and the first Elite Four member fight. 1 down, 4 to go. Second is Bruno. He leads with Rapidash and I lead off with Wong. Wong hits a massive Psychic as the horse sets up an Agility. This then prompts Bruno to heal up and a Psychic leaves it in the red HP range. After tanking a takedown, a Thunderbolt gets the KO. Second is Persian, who outspeeds and hits a Slash before a Thunderbolt leaves him in the yellow HP range. After tanking another slash, I pick up the KO with a follow-up Thunderbolt. Third is Swalot, and since I'm on pretty low HP, I switch into Loki on a Sludge Bomb. A slash does decent damage before tanking another Sludge Bomb. A follow-up slash on the next turn then gets the KO, baiting in a Zoom Roll. The bunny takes massive damage from a slash before setting up the rain. The Zoom Roll doesn't get to take advantage because a follow-up slash gets the KO. Last is Alakazam, who sets up a Calm Mind before being killed by a slash, winning me the battle and the second Elite Four member fight. 2 down, 3 to go. Third is Agatha. She leads with Skarmory and I lead off with Loki. I get a slash or some chip damage before tanking an Air Cutter. I then decide to switch into Wong on a Metal Sound. On the next turn, I outspeed and snipe the Metalborg with a Thunderbolt. Second is Beedrill, and he actually tanks a Thunderbolt and gets off a pursuit. But since Beedrill is so weak, I can just go for a Thunderbolt on the following turn to get the KO. Third is Nidoqueen, and this thing is part Poison type, meaning I can just get the KO with a Psychic. Fourth is Fortress, and he actually tanks a Psychic fairly well and sets up a layer of spikes. On the next turn, I decide to switch into Iron Patriot on a Miss Zap Cannon. I then hit an Air Cutter for some chip as the Fire Hazard misses a Zap Cannon and restores health. I then hit his chip Steel Wing before Fortress misses his third Zap Cannon. And then from here it's off to Pepper on a Zap Cannon that doesn't connect. I also take some chip from Spikes, but it doesn't matter because I have leftovers. On the next turn, I hit a Massive Earthquake to take it out. Fifth and last is Warlord. Now this thing may look very bulky, but one Earthquake from Pepper picks up the KO, winning me the battle and the third Elite Form. Fourth and last is Lance. His Pokemon have a high base stat total, so there's a chance we could see some legendaries. Lance's lead Crobat, however, just gets KO'd by a couple of slashes from Loki. His Dragonite comes in and tanks half from Slash as he sets up a Safeguard, and then outspeed and KO with a follow-up slash. Third is Kecleon with Intimidate to lower my attack, meaning I have to go ahead and hit 2 slashes to get the KO. Fourth is Celebi, and with nerf stats I switch into Iron Patriot on a Perish Song. Celebi then goes for a Future Sight before I hit an Air Cutter for around half of its HP. Because of Perish Song, I switch into Widow on a failed Future Sight. Since the Perish Song is one turn away from killing Celebi, Lance pivots to Wailord who tanks a Crunch. I then tank a Future Sight on the next turn for a Chunk. After hitting a Crunch, which leaves him in the yellow, the Whale goes for a Rest, restoring its HP. Since I'm not doing massive damage, I switch into Flush as Wailord stays asleep. On the next turn, I hit a massive Low Kick to take it out. Fifth and last is Celebi, so I decide to switch into Wong on a Future Sight. After tanking an Ancient Power, I hit a weak Thunderbolt, bringing him down to a Citrus Berry. On the next turn, I decide to switch into Loki on a Perish Song, and then I tank a Future Sight. I then hit a Slash, leaving Celebi in the red as he sets up another Future Sight. This then prompts Lance to heal up, and I hit a Slash for around half of its HP. I then have an idea. I decide to switch into Pepper on a hard Future Sight, but it doesn't matter because Celebi's own Perish Song takes him out, winning me the battle in all 4 Elite Four member fights, deathless. You really outplayed yourself, Lance. And then, we have one more fight against Butt. Now there's 6 randomized Pokemon standing between us and victory. These Pokemon could be anything, and I always tend to play a little bit less conservatively in the final battle against the champion, so I'm ready to make whatever sacrifices necessary. Let's do this. He says some useless words that means nothing and leads off with his Mischievous. Since I can't hit this thing, I decide to switch into Iron P on a Parasong. After tanking a Psybeam that confuses, I hit an Air Cutter. I then decide to switch into Widow on a Grudge. But then switches out Mischievous on the following turn for a Jumpluff who actually tanks a Crunch fairly well. This thing could hit me for super effective damage, so I decide to switch into Pepper on a Cotton Spore. Jumpluff then misses a Sing and I hit a Dragon Claw. From here I decide to switch into Iron Patriot who gets put asleep. I actually wall Jumpluff fairly well, so even though I stay asleep for a couple of turns, it doesn't exactly matter here because this thing can't really hit me at all. Eventually I do wake up and I hit an Air Cutter to take it out. His next Pokemon is a Hunto, who tanks an Air Cutter and just goes for a Scary Face that misses. From here, it's off to Wong on a hard Hydro Pump. It doesn't matter here because I outspeed and KO with a Thunderbolt. Mischievous then comes back in and a Thunderbolt does massive damage and I get the Paralysis. It doesn't matter here and Butt heals up for whatever reason. This does mean I'm able to go for a Thunderbolt doing around half. I hit another Thunderbolt before Mischievous goes for a Parasong, but then burns through another full restore. After a couple of more Thunderbolts, I switch into Widow as Bud switches into Explouded. The Surf does around 50% as he goes for a Hyper Beam, which kills me. RIP buddy, may our paths cross again in another life. Luckily Wong comes in and gets the KO with a Psychic. Mischievous then comes back in and Butt heals before I'm able to go for a Psychic doing massive damage. Unfortunately I've run out of PP, meaning I have to switch into Pepper on a Side Beam. Luckily a Dragon Claw on the following turn gets the KO. 5th is Venusaur and I go for a Crunch for some chip as he goes for a Growth. I then decide to set up a Sandstorm as Venusaur decides to go for a Synthesis. I then hit another Dragon Claw as I get hit by a Razor Leaf. Since I'm pretty low here, I pretty much have no choice but to hit a Dragon Claw and watch in horror as Pepper is killed by a Razor Leaf on the following turn. RIP buddy. This does mean I'm able to go into Wong and he can't really do anything, meaning I gotta switch into Iron Patriot on another Growth. After watching Venusaur set up another Growth, I'm able to go for a couple of Air Cutters to take it out. Even with +3, I still wall this thing fairly well because I have quad times resistant to all of its moves. 6th and last is a Slowking, and unfortunately Iron Patriot's gonna have to go down. RIP buddy. He hits an Air Cutter and then gets KO'd by a Psychic. This does mean I'm able to get a free switch into Loki, who hits a massive slash but then gets hit by a Swagger and Slowking restores health. Since I'm gonna hit myself in confusion, I decide to switch into Flesh. I know what I have to do here. I hit a Karate Chop and watch in horror as Flesh falls to a Psychic. This does mean I'm able to get a safe switch into Loki, who is able to take Slowking out with a slash, but it doesn't feel complete. I did expect at one point that some randomized Pokemon would come along and just sweep my entire team, and that pretty much happened in the champion battle, so I'm kind of glad it happened at the final battle of the game, and say not like Giovanni or something like that. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. This video was actually pretty fun to make. I had just had a lot of fun, you know, watching all the randomized Pokemon. Using a Slaking was pretty cool, and using a Gardevoir as well. Anyway, thank you guys so much for the recent support on my most recent video, my Pokemon Hot Take video. That video did pretty well, and I'm pretty happy with the results. So thank you guys so much. Remember, Nuzlocks are just rules that we add to a self-imposed kids game. Anyway, I'll catch you guys in the next video, and if you want some more Pokemon content, I recommend you check out the videos in the cards right here. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you on the flip. Bye.